What's poppin' T Squad? It's your girl Keisha, and I'm here with tonight's All Tea, All Shade, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 1 Reunion Part 2. Gotta say that the ladies came with it once again. Reunion Part 2 was even better than Reunion Part 1. There were so many dramatic, funny-ass moments. Loving what these ladies were bringing. I wish that they would have brought this type of drama to the actual season, but going into Season 2... it looks like we're going to get a really good season going into Season 2, so I'm very excited about it. So we start off Reunion Part 2 with Mary's segment, what I've been waiting for, because, you know, Mary is the star of the show. Her and Heather are the stars. And we find out that the reason she had her sweat glands removed is because she and her family members have it where, you know, they got boils and stuff underneath their arms and, like, I guess their private parts or whatever. And so she had to have that moved. And I have heard that surgery can be very, like, painful. So Mary apologizes to Jen for, you know, saying that lady smell like hospital. So Jen was like, this is the first time you've apologized. And Mary was like, no, it's not. I already apologized to you. And I was like, bitch, she apologized to you episode 1 or 2 of this season. Like, what are you talking about? So Jen was like, it wasn't sincere. And Mary was like, you don't tell me it wasn't sincere. I'm not going to kiss your butt. And I was like, exactly. Like, how you going to tell somebody whether or not it was sincere or not? Like, you know when a person's apology isn't sincere. And I felt like Mary just one of them people that she like, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like Mary is just one of those people that are super deep and emotional. Not saying that that's right, but I do think when she apologized to Jen in the beginning part of the year that she was somewhat sincere. I'll just say that much. Heather, meanwhile, is sitting back loving every moment of this. She is loving the energy that Mary is giving Jen. So 7-Eleven gate comes up, and this is when Jen said midway through the season that Mary told her when they were in New York that she doesn't like stopping at convenience stores when black people or black men are standing outside. Jen says, Mary said, I have a fear when guys are standing outside of a convenience store. Andy was like, black guys? And she was like, no, I'm black. So Jen was like, yes, you did. Mary was like, she tried to turn that around just like she did Meredith. Andy says, but you admitted it on the show. And Mary was like, no, I didn't. I didn't admit it or whatever. They did a flashback, and only thing that she said was shut up. So I was like, she didn't admit it. I don't remember her admitting that she ever said it. So Meredith was like, I felt like it was a reference about sketchy people in general. I don't think that she had anything to do with race. So Mary was like, I told Jen my taste for black guys, that's not my taste. And Andy was like, you prefer white guys? And Mary was like, yeah. So Andy was like, you're married to a black guy. She was like, he's white. And he was like, huh? And she was like, I mean, he's light. I've realized with this reunion that Mary is one of those scattered brain people, and she doesn't have good speech. It's obvious that she doesn't know how to put her words together right, and that is to her detriment. She is one of those people who I feel like, and she even said it out her own mouth on tonight's reunion, that her words get her in trouble a lot of time, but she honestly doesn't mean any harm, and I believe that. Do I think that Mary has colorism issues? Absolutely, 100%. We've seen the before and after pictures of how browner her skin was and how she's lightened her skin over the years. I 100% think that Mary does have issues with her own skin complexion and with, you know, dark-skinned black people in general. I do think that Mary comes across with an elitist attitude as well. But I also, after watching this reunion and seeing everything that we've seen on this season and the things that I have read on the blogs and things like that, that Mary is a person who grew up in a fucked up environment with this fucked up weird ass family, and Mary does not know herself. She's a 40-some, damn near 50-year-old woman who has never lived for herself and does not know herself. And when she says she doesn't like black men, she meant that. She likes white men. She likes white men. She wants to be a white woman. Meanwhile, Jen wants to be a black woman. Like, they want to switch skin. I know Jen is not white, but still. And you know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with her having a preference, because it's plenty black men that don't feature us. They don't want a black woman. They prefer white women. So I'll let you have that. I don't think that there's nothing wrong with it. There are black women that prefer a lighter skinned man. They don't like chocolate men. It's all about your preference. I don't like fat niggas. Does that mean that I'm a horrible person? No, I just don't want to fuck with a fat man. Don't want it. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that she has colorism issues within herself and within the community. She tries to clean it up, but no. Mary was like, it's just more so of a preference. Andy was like, people thought it was internal racism. And Mary was like, I know, because I'm black. She's not black, talking about Jen. And Jen was like, you said there's different kind of black people. People that live in Utah and people that live in Compton. And Mary was like, I don't know what she's talking about. Isn't your husband a racist? And Jen was like, that is not true. Mary was like, I just asked the question. I just put it out there, asked the question. Like, bitch, what you getting mad for? So Jen was like, wow, don't do that. I'll bring up true stuff. Don't you dare ever say or anything about my husband. And Mary was like, put your finger down, girl. Put your finger down. Jen was like, no, don't do that. And Mary was like, your kids are not her. And all Jen did was put that hand down and turn her head to the side. Mary be getting Jen ass together. Jen cannot fuck with Mary on no level. All that yelling and that bass in her voice that she could do with the white hoes that scare them, it don't scare Mary. Mary checks her ass and she sits there on mute every fucking time. Now the comment about Mary saying that Sharif is a racist, I haven't picked up that energy from that man, but who knows? I mean, he is over there married to a whole Hawaiian woman. Maybe he don't even like black women. Who knows, child? Who the fuck knows? I wouldn't be surprised with these niggas. But I can tell you one thing, his wife want to be a whole black woman, because on next week's reunion, when she says to Heather, calling a woman of color aggressive is dangerous, I'm like, girl, she want to have the black plight so bad. Her name is Heather Luther King at this point. Heather X. I mean, Gen X. Gen X or Hawaiian X or Hawaiian Luther King. That is that lady's name, because she want to be black so motherfucking bad, and she wants to have the black experience so bad. Like, girl, them women calling you aggressive ain't got shit to do with your skin complexion. Bitch, you are aggressive, and bitch, you are fucking crazy, you fucking sociopath. So, where was I at? So Mary was like, this is where I realized that she has a speech impediment. She was like, can I just say Addie? And she didn't even say Andy. She said Addie. She's like, can I just say Addie? And he was like, yeah. She was like, I need to improve on the way I convey things. She said convey, not even convey. She doesn't know how to, her words get jumbled up. And I think that Mary's one of those people where her mind goes quicker than her speech or something. I don't know, but she needs a speech therapist. She doesn't know how to form sentences correctly. And she was like, the way I say things can come across offensive. I think all colors of black are beautiful. I love black men. You tolerate black men, but you don't love them. But okay, girl, you tried to clean it up, but no, ma'am. So Andy was like, why the ladies didn't stand up for Mary when Jen's out of line, but are quick to be on Jen's side at the Met Gala. Mary was like, always, they're always doing it, even today. And Andy was like, when Jen called her husband a grandpa effer, no one checked Jen. Mary was like, nor does she ever apologize. Jen was like, but how come no one checked Mary for what she said? And at that moment, I realized too about Jen. Jen is a very tit for tat, childish ass person. It's always like, who are you? But what was that shit that we said as a kids? What are you, but what am I? Or whatever the fucking little phrase or whatever that we used to taunt people by saying, like, she's a very childish person. It was like, well, he did this to me and she did that to me and he said that, so I said this. It's like, bitch, you were wrong as fuck for saying it about that lady. Her saying you smell like hospital was not that fucking bad of a thing for you to say. That, you know, but she a grandpa fucker and all the other fucked up things that you said about that woman. It was not that motherfucking deep. And she had apologized to you. I honestly don't think that Jen doesn't like Mary because Mary is an actual black woman. and she wants to have the black plight so bad. And I think that there's some jealousy there with Mary. And it's the fact that she can intimidate Mary like she can intimidate the other women. So Andy was like, so do you want to apologize? And Jen goes to apologize, but Mary cuts her off and was like, I can say that it's not sincere. And I agree, because somebody making you do it after a year later is not fucking sincere. Because if you were sincerely apologetic, you would have did it before the show aired, you would have did it while the show was airing, and you didn't do so. So Jen was like, it was a heated conversation, I shouldn't have said it, I was angry at her, that's it. Andy was like, do you accept her apology? And Mary was like, I didn't hear an apology. And Jen was like, I'm sorry. Like, she did not want to fucking say sorry for shit. So Mary was like, you said a lot of things about me. And Heather was like to Whitney, yeah, it's like she never let up. And Mary was like, then you were on social media. Andy was like, did you post about her and her husband? Jen was like, I posted one thing. Heather was like, no, you posted a lot of stuff, a lot of mean stuff. And Andy was like, do you feel you took your beef too far? Jen was like, I felt like she took it too far. Once again, the tit for tat shit. And I was like, you went in on that woman and she didn't do nothing to you. She didn't do nothing to you. So Heather was like, there was stuff going on way before this started on social media. You're detached from human emotion and you're cruel. Jen was like, it was cruel for her to make those comments about what she said about me. Going back to this, she smelled like hospital bullshit. Girl, grow up. So Heather was like, that's your artillery, and you've done it to me, you've done it to Whitney, and you've done it to Meredith. Like, you try to make excuses for the things that you do to other people based off what you think that they've done to you. So Andy brings up Whitney telling Jen that Mary told her Meredith and Lisa said they were afraid of Jen. Mary was like, I asked Meredith how she feels about the way Jen treats me and why it's every time and every event. Meredith says, I think I probably said I don't understand it. Andy was like, well, how did things get changed to saying that you all were scared of her? Mary was like, little Barbie over there talking about Whitney. So Whitney was like, Mary told me that they don't like the way you have been talking about her marriage, but they didn't want to tell you to your face because they were scared of your reaction. Every time we said Mary, you'd freak out. Point blank, Andy, period. And I 100% believe that. I do believe that they didn't like the way that she was treating Mary, but they were too afraid to confront her because they didn't want to deal with the wrath of Jen and Jen acting like a fucking Tasmanian devil. So Jen was like, that's not true. Nothing's ever true. Everybody done everything to Jen. Oh, girl. So then they flash back to all of her freakouts whenever Mary's name is brought up. And I was like, bitch, you act like we didn't see all this. You act like it's not on camera. I don't understand these people that get on reality shows and act like shit just never happened. Like it's just all in our head. And I need for there to be a host to be like, girl, like, you're not about to sit here and act like you didn't freak out every time this woman's name was brought up. Like, we're not about to do this. Not today, Satan. No, we're not. Like, that shit blows me. So Mary was like, Heather, is that not true? And Heather was like, yeah, she did it. So Jen was like, it's not the word Mary. It's the issue at hand that you're missing out on. Girl, you ain't that upset because she said you smell like no fucking hospital. You're jealous of that woman. You don't like her because you can't punk her, and you don't like her because she's black. So Mary was like, no, I'm sorry. Andy was like, did you say they're scared of her? Mary was like, no, I said, I think they are. So everybody was like, oh, so that's what was said. Lisa jumps in, was like, why were you guys so excited to even tell her? So they show an unshown scene where Heather and Lisa are out, and Heather is telling Lisa how terrified she is of Jen. So as Lisa's coming from the standpoint of y'all were trying to create this gang up for all of us to say we're scared of Jen. Like they were like Whitney and Heather were trying to ban the other two girls to admit that they were scared of Jen, so it could be the we're scared of Jen train. So Heather says to Lisa, you act terrified of her. No one in this room is as terrified, I can't even talk, of her as you. Do I think that Lisa is terrified of Jen? No. Do I think that Lisa has made some type of alliance with Jen? Absolutely 100%. Because you know that's what these hoes do. They link up, they gang up, and come with a gang plan for the reunion because they know they're going to be in a hot seat and they know they need to have each other's back. And I do believe that that's what they're on. I really honestly do. So Mary was like, it's so true. Mary was like, yeah, bitch, you're scared of her. So Lisa was like, here we go, weather, Whitney and Heather, bad weather, spin the truth, destroy. And everybody got quiet and looked like, the fuck was that? Heather looked at Whitney like, that shit was funny. So Heather was like, well, hopefully that one takes off because the other little hashtag you had fell flat. So I guess that was supposed to be a little ism that she came up with, and everybody was just looking at her like, okay. So Andy was like, why do you two think Lisa is not actually friends with Jen? Heather was like, Lisa is not friends with anyone but herself. So Andy says she's friends with Meredith. Heather was like, she's been a shitty friend to Meredith. Lisa says, who talked about her marriage? Not me. You couldn't wait to go in your interview and talk about her marriage. I'm a good friend. And Heather was like, so did Jen. And that's what cracked me up. That's why I say they got an alliance with each other, because you're blasting her for talking about Meredith's marriage, but you have yet to say anything to Jen about talking about your best friend, your homegirl's marriage. Since you were so upset, why you ain't checking this octagon face shaped asshole? Like, I don't really get that. So, Lisa says, calls her a perpetual victim. Meredith says, let me make myself clear. And then, we thinking Meredith about to put the smack down or something. So she's like, let me make myself clear. The next one of you who say anything about my family, and we was all waiting for the moment, like, I'm gonna spill y'all tea, I'm gonna come knocking at y'all door, I'm gonna bust a cap in y'all ass, I'm gonna fuck one of you hoes up, I'm gonna fuck one of y'all husbands. No, Meredith says, you are not my friend. I was like, get her off of here. Get her off the show, her weak ass. I was looking like, womp, 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 boo. Like, that's all you got to say. We're no longer friends anymore. That's some white women shit. Like, girl, Meredith, go back to bed, girl. Goodbye. Stop it. So, where was I at? So Andy goes back to Mary's marriage and asks, is there a will stating that her grandmother wanted her to marry her husband? Mary was like, no. She told me she wanted me to replace her. She told him she wanted him to marry one of her girls because they'll treat you as good as you treated me. Andy says, it seems like your mom would have been more age appropriate. Mary was like, well, my grandmother had pretty much put everything on me. Robert Sr. and I were never close, just like me and Sherlinda, my cousin, aren't close. Her mom works for me. They both work for me. They have a little apartment. I pay their rent and they clean my house. And this is where things come across with Mary. Like I said, like she has this snobby elitist attitude by saying they have a little apartment. And like she doing them a favor or whatever. There are plenty of family members of mine that I'm not close to or whatever the case may be, but I don't treat them like they're peasants or anything like that. And that's where that comes across, where you can tell that Mary thinks that she's the family member that got it all, and like she the one, the rich cousin that come through shitting on everybody. Like she has that air about her. And she needs to really work on that, and that ain't got shit to do with no speech impediment. So, Andy says, would you say your marriage is an arrangement? And she nods her head. And I was like, anybody with two eyes can see that. Like, Mary want to break out and fuck somebody else so bad. So Andy was like, are you in love with him? And Mary was like, I think I am. Like, she's not. She's so not. Like, and that man know it. Like, they have a marriage of convenience. So Andy was like, what's the age difference? And she was like 18 years. And we also find out that that's how many years apart Whitney is with her husband. So Andy asks, was she married beforehand? And did she leave her husband to marry her step-grandfather? Mary says she was married, but everybody marries young. She got married like at 19 or 20, and that she did not leave her husband for her grandfather. She said it was irreconcilable differences, and it was basically like she wanted to say something else, but she cut back on saying what the actual issue was. So Andy was like, are you physical? And you could tell she was very uncomfortable answering this question. And she was like, not in the last few years or whatever. You could tell that she would be disgusted to have sex with him. He's old. He's, overweight man. The skin is sagging. Yeah, no, ma'am. So Andy was like, do you sleep in the same bed? And Mary was like, no. and then she gets emotional. And people online were saying that she was faking. I don't think that Mary was faking at all. Once again, Mary does not know how to use her words, but I believe everything that woman said, because if you listen to what she was saying, I know what her intent was. Mary's exact words was, like every single Chanel he's bought for me, I don't have to buy myself anything. Every designer thing I have, Robert Sr. got for me. We're happy. You can't say or do anything to take it away from me because it's very hard to find. Marriage is hard. It can be a nightmare. And I have a beautiful one. And with that, what she was saying is, like, no, we may not be intimate. No, I may not be in love with him, but I'm indebted to him and I'm loyal to him and I respect him for everything that he has done for me. He has taken care of me and I have never had to want for anything. And because of that, I will respect that man and be happy with him and I will stick by his side until that nigga fall dead and I can finally be who the fuck I want to be with. That's what the fuck she was trying to say, but Mary does not know how to use her words. And people on social media were saying, oh, how you go from talking about Chanel and designer stuff to crying? Like I said, she doesn't know how to use her words correctly. I understood the intent behind her words. Andy then brings up the audio that was going around the beginning of the season with her telling her church members that they were poor and they were selfish for not getting her a birthday card or whatever. And she was like, it was me on the tape, but it was taken out of context. I didn't feed into that either when it first came out because I know how people can chop and screw stuff and make it seem like it's one thing and it's actually not. So I never really fell into that whole thing. Like I said, do I think that Mary has colorism issues? Absolutely, 100%. Do I think that she's using her church members? No. I mean, if she is, that's something she gonna have to deal with. She gonna have to deal with her own judgment day. And do I think that her church is a cult? Shit, I don't know. I ain't going to that motherfucker. And if them motherfuckers crazy enough to let her be a cult leader, that's all the fuck on him. But I don't think that she would actually join a fucking nationally syndicated show knowing all of these things would be exposed. That makes absolutely no sense. So, he even asked, are the rumors that your church is a cult? And she was like, yeah, we've heard the rumors, but we have the same beliefs as the Mormons. And Heather was like, they say the same thing about Mormons. So Andy was like, it said that your personal wealth is coming from the church. And Mary was like, my church couldn't possibly take care of me. And I was like, you better read them, Mary. So Andy was like, does that mean you got your grandmother's inheritance? And she was like, yeah. Andy says your mom was not happy. And Mary was like, yeah, grandmother and Robert Sr.'s mother built all the restaurants and the mortgage company. And that was, remember when Mary said in the beginning of the season that her grandmother wanted everything to stay in the family. She didn't want to have to split that shit up and have the shit that she worked for and Robert Sr.'s mama worked for to go to no other bitch. That's what it was. She wanted to keep that shit in the motherfucking family. She said that her grandmother and Robert Sr.'s mother built restaurants and had mortgage companies and everything. So Andy asked Jen and Mary, can they let bygones be bygones? And both of the ladies was like, yeah, they both apologized to each other again. Do I think that this truce will last? Absolutely not. So, Heather's segment arrives and she says that the show has helped her confidence tremendously, but she's still working on herself. She says that she wants her girls to be wild and have multiple partners. And Mary was looking like, no, don't say that. No, I was like, yes, say that. Don't have these little girls thinking about marriage and shit at the age of 20 and 25. That shit is so antiquated. Is she saying that she wants her girls to just slut around? Absolutely not. But I think that it is so imperative that women in their 20s live their best life. Don't be tied down to no man, having no babies and getting married or whatever. Unless that you just met your soulmate, go ahead and have that, because you do have those instances. But for the most part, I always encourage young women to not be thinking about marriage and babies and this and that. Have your career, girl. Travel the world. Date as many men as you can so you can learn about what it takes to be a woman in a relationship, what it will take to be a good wife, because you have to go through, ups and downs and ebbs and flows to learn who you are and what kind of partner that you want and what kind of partner you will be, and even learning what type of man that you want physically, emotionally, financially. You have to date around, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with her with that. So Lisa says that Heather's ego is the most inflated since the show. Heather says, well, why would you recommend me then deny that you know me? So at this point, that's when I realized, okay, this is why Lisa has this holier than thou attitude, because she was the one that linked up the cast. They came to her, asked her if she had knew a group of friends to put together for this show, and she did. I meant to watch the end credits to see if she has some type of producer credit or something like that, kind of like what Mariah had. I'm gonna look into that. But other than that, we now know for sure that Lisa was the one to get the girls together, and that's why she has this attitude like she running something or something. And girl, if you don't get somewhere and sit down. So Lisa was like, I met you in 2017. Andy asked Heather about feeling insecure that Jen was going to ditch her for Meredith and Lisa. She says that she still even feels that way today. And Jen was like, I was hurt that you felt that way. Heather was like, she went after all of us except for Lisa. So that showed me she was making choices in her friendship loyalty. It started once we announced the show in 2019. So this, like I said, all this stuff been going on before the show even aired. So Whitney says, Lisa never thought I was good enough to be in this seat. This woman has put me down to my face, and that is the goddamn truth. And Andy, dismissive, was like, okay. He was like, let's take a break. So Lisa says, Heather, I didn't know you before 2017. And Heather was like, girl, the blogs already exposed you, whatever. So she was like, you say you hate drama, but you double down on Jen Shaw. And I agree with Heather. It makes absolutely no sense. That's how you know they have an alliance and they have a truce. Because if you hate drama, you hate liars, and you know that this same bitch then talked about your friend's marriage and accused your friend of basically cheating on her husband, but that's your homegirl? Nah. Now, it's plenty of shit that I let ride in my friendships, but if you my best friend and you still befriending a hoe that done talked about my marriage and accused me of cheating on my husband, that made slick ass remarks about my kid on social media, and you talking about you still love this bitch and you like her and you gonna ride for her, oh bitch, nah, we ain't friends. And that's why I'm not understanding about Meredith. But I peep Meredith, but Meredith, you still a dummy. But we gonna get on that in a minute. So, Lisa says, I care about her. And Heather says, over Meredith? And Lisa was like, never. And Heather was like, in a million ways, you did though. And Meredith is just sitting there watching all of this going down, peeping game, but she ain't saying nothing. See, Meredith, one of them bitches that sit back and peep the scene. She ain't trying to call Lisa out yet. I don't know why, but she peep game. But I'm not understanding why Mary is not confronting motherfuckers. Like, I ain't with all that. Like, Meredith too laid back for me. Like, you on a reality show, bitch. You better start checking hoes, because that's what's been your best friend, and she talking about she care about this hoe. Nah, bruh. So Heather and Lisa arguing. Heather says, you haven't shown up for Meredith today. And Andy says, so you're saying that because she's such good friends with Jen and the one person. And then Lisa cuts off Andy once again, is like, let's all bail on Jen. No one be friends with Jen. Mind you, she standing up now, walking around with that flat ass of hers and that silk dress on, child, that satin dress. So Heather was like, you are freaking out. Are you watching your own performance right now? And she was doing the most. And that's because a hit dog will motherfucking holler, and she felt guilty. So Lisa continued to yell and flail her arms everywhere and walking all over the set in them platform 70s heels. And Heather said, you say you hate liars and drama, but you align yourself with the center of all of it. Make it make sense. So Meredith and Whitney leave set. Heather and Lisa still arguing. Lisa said, can someone get me John, please? And she walks off set, and Andy like, where the fuck is you going? Backstage, Lisa start crying and shit, saying Heather wants me to hate Jen. How do you dismiss someone who's broken? They can go on without me. Girl, that lady ain't no bit more broken. She just crazy as shit and a spoiled fucking pubescent adult. Goodbye. So yeah, that was reunion part 2. I give it an A. These hoes are crazy, and I'm not here for Hawaiian Luther King. I'm not here for Hawaiian Panther. I'm just really not here for her and her shenanigans and her trying to be a strong black woman. I'm just really not here for her bullshit. I mean, I get you a woman of color, girl, but you need to stop trying to have the black woman's plight. Girl, have several. Make sure you guys, thumbs up this video, like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell button. I love you guys so very much. Thanks for watching this review, and I'll see you tomorrow for Growing Up Hip Hop. Bye.